you decided to meet up at the Delby Psychopathic, horrible as that name is, hospital. For as long as you can remember, the Delby Psychopathic Hospital has loomed over Halkyn from the top of Breaker Hill. Until recently, the buildings have been abandoned. Owen and Baron, you remember from your early childhood that the old buildings used to be military barracks from the Great War. You remember your parents told you to stay away from that area. It's dangerous. It's old buildings, it could fall on you and hurt you. But being kids, both of you explored the area. So you know it better than the two younger members of your team. Most people are told to stay away from Delby Psychopathic Hospital, not because of the building now, but because of other reasons. Delby Psychopathic Hospital is a new establishment, a visionary way to treat the mentally ill. Not an asylum, not a prison, but a clinic specialized in treatment of especially victims of shell shock, what we know today to be PTSD. As you arrive, the red main building peeks through the dense evergreen forest enveloping the entire hospital. A courtyard gated by tall brick walls makes sure that the patients stay within a manageable area, and the large iron cascade which you are now standing in front of only lets staff and a very rare family member through. And that's where you're currently standing. It is very early morning as you decided that you wanted to use as much as the day that you can on finding out what is happening and where Dean is.
I take a moment to look over the old building and straighten my shirt. It's rather unsettling, in a way. Being young as I am, in my lifetime I just knew this place as a spooky building on the top of the hill. It's strange to see it active again. I guess it must have been done while I was away. Does it actually look better than it used to when it was abandoned, or does it still look a little bit derelict in some parts?
No, it looks fantastic. You've never seen an establishment like that, and you hear your dad talk about it all the time. He can't stop. Your dad is of the older school when it comes to doctors, so he rarely likes whenever a new establishment with new ideas about how to do things with patients appear. But even your dad can't deny that Delby Psychopathic Hospital looks really nice.
Then yes, even though there is a slightly eerie nostalgic feel to it, seeing it up close and seeing the bright painted walls and the clear evidence that this place has been made spick and span does ease me a little and make me curious. After all, I'm not really well read up on psychological treatment of patients. I know a little bit, I had to learn a little bit on the front, but this is interesting. And yet, I'm still a little anxious because, again, if Dean is here and is being looked after, then he can't be our culprit. Or can he? I look to the others. I look to Father Owen. Well, Owen, do you suppose we can just... If we explain that we're all here looking for, well, things regarding the missing children, surely they'll let us in, at least a little bit, no?
Well, let's be a little bit circumspect about it, Richard, because we're not officially representing the police, even with Byrne's good record. We, for the time, we just want to have a chat with Dean and see how he is, see if they accept visitors. Admittedly, it's early in the morning, but given that we've already done our rounds at the police station and elsewhere, hopefully they've already started admitting visitors. We'll have to see, won't we?
It's an eyesore.
Well, it's changed a bit since we were young, hasn't it?
It's marring the landscape. It doesn't fit in at all.
Well, now, Burn, I don't know if I agree entirely. In a way, it's actually a lot better looking than I thought it would be.
If anything, my reaction is quite the opposite of Richard's, seeing as I have grown used to Halkyn looking a very specific way, and this very modern-looking facility, to me, even if it looks good and clean, it sticks out. It looks very wrong, and I'm eyeing it a bit suspiciously as I'm having a sip from a flask.
Carwin is also less than pleased. He is not a lad possessed of a modern mind. So far as he understands, only the most dangerous and crazy people go into places like this. It doesn't matter what Richard's father says or whatever the scientific literature has to say about how modern the treatments are. All he knows is they stuffed everyone they could into the army, into the mines. So if you're in there, it's because you were too crazy even for that work, and he finds this entire thing quite unsettling.
Owen doesn't have nearly as many reservations. This is a hospital. It's a place of healing, or, yes, it could be seen as incarceration, but most of all, it's a place where care can be delivered to people who wouldn't receive it anywhere else. And he is sure that the people who are here are receiving the best possible care because he approaches most things with a blithely optimistic attitude until confronted with the horrid reality. It's part of what fuels his faith. And so he approaches the, is there a gate with a guard, or is it a simple hospital where you walk in through the front doors and there's an admission desk?
Nope, there is indeed a gate with a guard.
In that case, I walk up to the guard and introduce myself. Is the guard from the local community?
No, you don't really recognize him. He is sitting in a little box almost. It's very modern and very unlike any of the hospitals that you've been to. There's usually not a guard, but then again, it's a psychiatric hospital, so he's sitting with his feet up and reading the morning newspaper. He looks over the edge of it as you approaches.
Oh, don't get up. I'm Father Jenkins, from down in Halkyn. These are some of my friends. We've come to visit one of the patients at the hospital, and wondering how you go about doing that.
He takes his feet down from the table, sighs deeply as he looks up at you. You're interrupting his newspaper reading. And he reaches underneath his little desk and whips out a book, a big black book, and opens it up. Licks his finger. Were you visiting?
I tell him the name of the patient we're here to visit.
Let's see, Dean. He doesn't take visitors, I'm afraid. Who are you to him?
Well, as I said, I'm Father Jenkins. I'm from down in the town. I'm.
I don't know who you are.
Well, I'm a vicar, as you can probably tell from the outfit. I don't just dress up like this for pranks. I don't need more than a few minutes of his time, to be quite honest. Few people in the local community, we're friends of the family. We wanted to express some of our, compassion toward him and just see how he was getting on, see if he needed anything from town. And we're more than happy to run through any doctors or nurses and take any precautions that are necessary. But it is quite important that we see him. His parents are very worried. All of his friends are very worried about him.
Listen, Vicar.
Well, please, you can call me Owen.
This is a psychiatric establishment for very, very sick people. We don't just take visitors from the outside without any form of appointment. Do you know what happens if we just let anyone in here? These people are crazy. We can't just let people walk in here. It's dangerous.
Carwin is nodding enthusiastically, like I told you.
I'm handing over my flask to Carwin.
Listen, I understand. I do. I've been around many young men, especially, who have been very troubled with their time in the war. It's left them shocked. It's left them sometimes dangerous, sometimes violent. I understand that. I spent a long time over in Europe with these young men, and we're not trying to do anything silly. And we're not going to put ourselves in any danger. If we need to put a door between us and him to speak to him, that's absolutely fine. But you have to understand, and I'm sure every boy has a mother, and mothers get very worried about their sons. And Dean's mum's worried, and we're worried on her behalf. We just want to be able to go back to her and tell him he's doing okay, even if he's not. Listen, I just need you to look into your heart and call ahead and see if something can be arranged. Doesn't matter if there's people present, security or whatever. And I ramble on in this way, essentially trying to bamboozle him with all this well-wishing and positive thought. I will roll a persuade roll, and I succeed. I get a 32 against my skill of 70, so I would have even succeeded on a hard roll.
You don't really know if it's the guard being tired of your rambling, if it's him looking at you and thinking, ugh, you're harmless, or if you struck a note with this guard. Something about your speech touched him. But he closes the book again and looks at all four of you. Right. I need your names. We need to register everyone that comes in and out here.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Yes, certainly. Richard Walt. My father is actually you probably would know, is the local doctor.
I'm not from here. He writes down your name.
I wipe my mouth off with the back of my hand, return burn his flask, noticeably lighter. Carwyn Davies. I'm a friend.
Looks at your flask. I wouldn't recommend you bring that in here, just so you know.
Oh, yeah, we can empty it beforehand.
Now, Carwyn, let's leave the flask with the guard here. We don't want to be going in half-cocked, do we? And we don't want to be, putting temptation in the way of troubled minds. And I give Carwyn a stern look, and Burn, for that matter. If they're drinking alcohol this early in the morning, they are not being terribly responsible.
I look over at Carwyn as he hands me the flask, and I screw it on tight, the lid, after the comment from the guard, and from what Owen is saying, I hand it over to him if he wants to keep it safe. I notice the bruises and the darkened patterns over Carwyn's face still there, mirroring more or less my own. And something about it feels good. And then I say to the guard as I hand that flask over, Byrne Thompson, police officer of this fine community, now retired.
Alright. Right. Listen, I'm gonna let you in, but if I hear anything about you causing any sort of trouble, you're out. Do you understand me?
Aye.
And I'm gonna have one of our doctors, let's see who is available today. He flips through the book again. I have Dr. Anger come here, and he will escort you through the facility. He's more than happy to do that. Just give me a few seconds. He turns around and makes a quick phone call. And in a matter of what seems almost like seconds, a small, stumpy-looking individual with feathery white hair, slicked down both sides of his scalp, is marching towards you. His doctor's coat is flapping in the air behind him. He's carrying a red notebook with him in his hand. And As he comes towards you, you realize that he's even smaller up close than he was from a distance. He's not a big man. Welcome, and who's the patient here? Dr. Anchor. He reaches out a hand.
I shake him by the hand, and I give him the patient's name. We're looking to speak to Dean. He's from our local community down in Halkyn.
Oh, no, I so you're not, none of you are going to be hospitalized here, is that correct?
Oh, I certainly hope not. Although, sometimes I wonder about Burn. And I look at Burn and give him an elbow.
I stumble a bit at the elbow, and I give you a sort of somewhere in between annoyed and smiling expression.
Well, that's fine too. Are you from Halkyn area?
That's right, yes. We're from down in Halkyn.
All of you? All of you?
Yeah, all four of us.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, that's excellent, because we want the good word of this hospital to spread, you know? We have great plans. We have great plans. We're gonna change the history of psychopathic treatment. The ideas that we have, the visions that we have, it's gonna be excellent. And now after the war, we have all of these individuals with troubled minds. We're gonna help them. We're gonna lock them up for a little while, you know, kind of remodel them. It's called the remodeling technique. And then we're gonna put them back into society, and they're gonna be changed forever. Changed human beings. You'll see. Let me guide you through our facility. He beckons you in, and the gate opens.
Well, of course, although I don't know, isn't the point of psychiatric care to rehabilitate? Using the word changed is a little of a strange way of putting it.
Change, rehabilitation, potato. It's pretty much the same. But change is such a powerful word, right? It looks better when you write it on paper.
I'm not entirely sure I'd agree, but, well, whatever you say, it does sound interesting, I guess. I say slightly concerned. It sounds a little strange the way this man's talking.
As the group starts to walk towards the facility proper, I'm going to lean a bit closer to Owen and shoulder in a whisper, like, they just can't take people, right? Like, there's paperwork or something. Like, there's a process. They can't just, grab someone who's visiting and keep them.
I'm not. You'd probably have to ask Richard about that. But my understanding is you've got to be admitted by a doctor. They can't just think you're a bit quirky and say, we now have custody over you or anything like that. Don't worry, Carwin. None of us are in any danger. This is a hospital.
I, on the other hand, lean over to Richard, and I murmur, my opinion is if you end up behind bars, it's because you belong behind bars.
Well, Bird, remember, it's not a prison. It's a hospital. These people are suffering. You'd be surprised what people go through that can affect not just the body, but the mind. And I kind of go a bit quiet, remembering exactly some of the things I saw in the medic tents in the war that will stay with me forever, and feeling a little unwell.
As he hears this, the doctor turns around, and that is exactly right. We are here to help people, you understand? We're here to help them. The progress and the process of that is unique, it's different, it's new. We're just now understanding the depths of the human mind, with pioneers like Freud leading the way and teaching us that what happened in the past also has an effect on you now. And That is fascinating. Now, let me lead you through. The first thing I want to show you. This is our recreational gardens. He points towards a very nicely kept garden. There is big fields for sports activities. There is a little garden for vegetables. You see patients are actually seems quite relaxed in this environment. There is quite a few caretakers who doesn't really seem to be paying that much attention to the patients. Kind of seems like they're keeping to themselves. We give the patients the opportunity to immerse in activity that us normal people would enjoy, like cricket or gardening. And he points towards the gardens and the fields.
I have to admit, you have a good point there. There's nothing more relaxing than planting something. I quite enjoyed that before, I went to war.
Of course, only our best patients get this opportunity. You know, those who are a little too, they can't go out here. It's not safe, and it's, they need to show that they can be in this environment. Like they have to fight for it. They have to show that they can do it, and that takes willpower. And that's one of our finest jobs here, is to give them the willpower back that they lost, that the weakness in their minds make them lose. So, we can't have a madman destroying the entire field or the gardens. That would be ridiculous. He leads you up to the main building and opens the door to the foyer. It looks more like a hotel than a health facility. It looks like it's supposed to look expensive rather than practical. A large chandelier hangs over your head and sways ominously as the wind from the outside catches it. It lights up the doctor as he continues his tour. Now, we're gonna go into our sleeping corridors. And in this area is where we provide some of our finest therapies. We provide shock therapy, hydrotherapy, where we subject our patients to icy cold water. And that is supposed, according to science, to give them a reawakening of their mind, of what they've lost.
And does it work? Owen is a bit incredulous. You say it's supposed to do this. Have you seen many cases where it does work?
Well, it's experimental yet, but I can tell you that our electroshock therapy indeed does work. Here at Delpes, we use newer methods, and it's quite fascinating. By giving the patient high voltage electrocutions, we force their body into convulsions.
I'm not surprised, honestly.
He points to a room with an open door where there are 4 chairs lined up with matching leather straps attached. We wield great results with this therapy, especially for our patients with nervous disorders and hysteria, but even depressive disorders benefit from electrotherapy. Of course, we still provoke cramps and convulsions in the patients through medical treatments, like, let's say, an overdosage of insulin, dropping their blood sugars rapidly. But this new method is much more sufficient.
I wrinkle my nose a little. I remember another medic, an older one, did tell me something about how this had been done to their father, or something. It is quite new treatment, but it just sounds silly to me. How could putting electricity into the human body help it? So I just kind of wrinkle my nose and nod and say, so you've had positive results?
Makes sense. Someone had a shock in a terrible warlike situation. makes all the sense in the world to shock them back, yes?
Exactly that. This, however, is a controlled shock. You see, what happened in the past, what happened during the war was not controlled, uncontrollable. And that's what drives the brain mad. Here we have controlled shock therapy. We can decide exactly what voltage we send through the patient's brain, exactly how many compulsions and convulsions we're going to give them. It's incredibly interesting. Oh, and of course, here at Delby, we are proud to be one of the leading hospitals to see neurologist John Fulton's work into fruition, the lobotomy. Does any of you know what the lobotomy is?
Well, I think as fascinating as this is, Doctor, and it really is, it's been an education for all of us. We're actually here to see one of your patients, as you know, and we don't want to keep him waiting. I would love to take the tour after we're done, but we've got a very worried mother back in town, and it would mean the world to us if we could speak to Dean. I'm barely suppressing a scowl. This isn't the first time I've heard of treatments like this, especially things like plunging people into freezing pools of water to see how their bodies react. And while I wasn't ever at the camps where that kind of thing took place during the liberation, I certainly heard of it, as many soldiers did. This kind of treatment, and his enthusiasm for it, which is frankly macabre as far as I'm concerned. It's callous. It seems callous. It seems cruel. It seems like mental butchery more than the care that I was expecting in a high-end facility like this. I had such hopes when I entered and it looked like a hotel, only to find out that just behind the first wall they're electrocuting people and dumping people in freezing baths. This is just a polished veneer over a medieval torture chamber, as far as I'm concerned. So, I smile at the doctor and say, so yes, Dean.
See, Dean is a very special patient of ours. He does not do well with any kind of social contact. So we're isolating him right now so we can get a more controlled environment around him, because he is in such a precarious state of mind, something that we have not encountered before. It's quite interesting. We can't let anyone near him.
Well, I understand that. I understand the severity, that he has a very severe condition. We are here to see him. We're not here to see your tools and devices and apparatus, as fascinating as they probably are to some people. We're here to see a man, a young man, who, yes, is troubled, but there is not a law in the land that prevents a man who is he's not incarcerated, I will point out, he is not in prison. Therefore, if there are people who wish to see him with benevolent intent, and that is certainly what we have, he has the right to hear our voices and decide for himself whether he wants to speak to us, doesn't he? Even if it's through a door to a padded cell or a dungeon with manacles hanging from the ceiling or wherever you're keeping him.
Now, the doctor's tone turns. He doesn't look eager or happy. He looks almost evil as he glares at you and says, "This Delby Psychopathic Hospital is a protected facility. We decide who leaves, who enters, Who talks to our patients? We have full control and responsibility over our patients. There's a reason why they're here, priest.
I feel a bit guilty at first. After all, Owen's words ring a little with me, because even though I myself was finding some of this a little ghoulish, a little part of me also was at least interested to learn, because it is, after all, medical science, and I study medical science. And then as Owen speaks, after that, I agree with him entirely, but as this doctor turns on us a little, I kind of feel, once again, a little impatient, and I kind of can't help but blurt out, "So you control who comes and who goes? Well, that's awfully odd, because it's quite possible one of your patients has been walking about outside your hospital."
Excuse me?
I open my mouth just as I'm about to say something, and then after Richard's outburst, I just look at him, a bit impressed, and then close it again, slowly.
The doctor now turns to Richard with an amused look in his eyes. You have no idea what you are talking about.
Oh, I assure you, sir, I think I do. We have several reasons to believe that Dean has not been in this hospital the entire time of... How long has he actually been in isolation? How long? Weeks? Months?
Dean has been in isolation now for a week's time. And I can assure you that Dean has not left this facility. He is under constant supervision.
Well, in that case, if you're so assured, I'm sure you wouldn't mind us asking him some questions that will mean we don't need to involve the police. Because right now we have plenty of evidence that would make police interested in finding out where his whereabouts have been, at least in the last week or so, which, as you say, he has been here.
Are any of you functioning police officers? Do you have any right to talk to this man?
I kind of look to Byrne.
Not any longer, but we are assigned by the local police officer, John Clark, to investigate something that has led us on a clear path to this place and to Dean. We hope that we can get it done as quickly as possible and just rule him out if enough evidence are provided that he has been here and under supervision, then that's very good and acceptable.
No, you're talking about the missing children. No. Dean has been in this hospital the entire time of all of that happening down in Halkyn. I don't know what you are doing down there, but Dean, I can assure you, has been right here at my facility. He's incapable of going in. If you see him, he's catatonic. He can't go anywhere. He doesn't even know what his name is.
So, how then has it come to be that we have heard reports of him stealing from the local merchants in Halkyn within the latest 2 weeks?
But it's impossible. He's been here the entire time. How can he do that? He can't be two places at once.
I would agree, but, well, evidence is evidence. Tell me. I imagine you're under some sort of confidentiality thing, I understand, but among his personal effects, did he have any photos with him when he came in?
Oh, I have to ask one of the nurses that took care of him. I wouldn't know.
One of his sister, perhaps. You see, this is what we have been trying to figure out ourselves, that the local police has reported this, and Dean clearly being the culprit in the last 2 weeks, and he's been here, from what I understand from you, then 3 weeks. We just need to make sense of this, because the very recent kidnapping of the Clark children have pieces of what he stole left at the criminal scene.
I understand. You have missing children. It's a tragedy. It's so sad. And I fully understand that you wanna help. You wanna play heroes. You're a retired police officer. you don't really have much value left, right? So you want to do this, you want to solve this case.
Don't seek to condescend. Do not condescend to my friend here, Doctor. We have shown you the respect your position is owed. We are members of our community. We have been deputized, as they say, by the local police force because they don't have many people in Halkyn. It's a small town. So give us the respect of ours. Fair enough, you're saying it is impossible that this young man could have escaped. You're saying that it is completely impossible that there is not one guard that might have looked the other way, fallen asleep, or been paid off, or something like that, or that a nurse who has just started working for you may be, I don't know, less reliable than another. There's many reasons why someone or how someone could get out of somewhere like this and get back in. So don't be throwing words around like impossible. We have got pretty damn good evidence that Dean was in town and has had something to do with these disappearances. And all we need is a moment to speak with him. Now, if, as you say, we speak with him, he's utterly catatonic, there's nothing we can do about it. Well, there is nothing we can do about it. That's just something we have to live with. We have to go back to town, tell the police. That's that. Now, if we find out something different, well, then it might lead to some children getting found, and you can't exactly say that that's a bad outcome, can you? If he's here for the duration, what does it matter to his treatment if he spends 5 minutes conversing with 4 people from his town? If it sets him back a day, keep him here an extra day.
You want to make a roll for this, Matthew?
I think I'll go for fast talk rather than persuade this time. I'm not as good, but it feels like a fast talk roll.
Yeah.
So right now I'm not succeeding, but I am going to spend a luck and go for a reroll.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I succeed on the button. I roll and I succeed.
Wonderful. It looks like the doctor is actually thinking about what you're saying. He looks to the ground, bit dismayed, bites his lip, and looks up at you. Okay. Right. If this gets you off my back and off this hospital so my patients can heal and rehabilitate properly and not have people from Halkyn coming here unannounced, fine. I'll have one of my nurses guide you through.
Thank you. Honestly, we appreciate it. Seriously, my father is the local doctor. I understand more than anything that you wish to keep this a good hospital.
That's all we ever wanted to do. He turns around and leaves the 4 of you, and shortly after, a nurse appears. A young nurse. She looks like she has been through it today. Her uniform is in a bit of disarray. There's a piece of hair stuck to her sweaty forehead. She's wearing a mask, surprisingly, and she quickly speeds towards you. Hello, I was told by the doctor that you needed help. I'm Maria. She holds out a hand.
I give her hand a light shake. Lovely to meet you, Maria. I'm sure you've already been told who we are. We've had to introduce ourselves, well, several times now. We just want to be shown to where Dean is so we can have a quick chat with him if that's possible.
Dean? A chat with Dean?
We understand if it needs to be supervised.
Well, I'm Dean's primary nurse. Dean doesn't talk. I'm sorry, have you not been told this?
We're hoping that he'll make an exception. The circumstances are somewhat grim.
We have been given the basics, but that doesn't mean we're not going to try.
Well, we have been given, and I will hope he'll make an exception due to some pretty grim circumstances.
Okay, well, if it's the doctor's orders, I suppose. I don't know why. She turns around and guides you through the sleeping quarters. You cannot tell exactly what it is, but as soon as she opens the door to the quarters, an undefinable sour smell hits you. It's the kind of smell that you smell in an overcrowded place, like a train station or an airplane. You can tell that it's just a smell of too many humans being too long in the same place. And this part of the hospital is very different from the foyer hotel-like entrance that you entered. Patients are sat up and down the long corridors, many of them on wooden rocking chairs, in an attempt to stimulate themselves in this ghastly environment. An occasional cry, scream, or moan occurs from the rooms nearby. Almost animalistic sounds. Sometimes you don't even know if it actually is an animal or if it's a human. Most of the patients here look malnutritioned, sleep deprived. The nurse almost looks embarrassed as she leads you through. She's helping patients on the way, helping a patient with the crutches and helping another take a sip of a drink. And you can tell that these people here, they don't look treated. They don't look rehabilitated like the doctors so proudly boasted about. They look very sick.
I pull a handkerchief up out of my pocket and hold it to my face. This reeks like the worst barracks in the mining camps. And I mutter under it, probably loud enough for the people to hear. It's like a terrible warehouse of just suffering.
I feel rather unwell myself. I was on the front at times, and even there, where things were awful, at least there were people like myself attending the patients. They just look like they've been left here, and this is supposed to be state of the art, not a war zone. I just say, this is certainly less well done, I think. This is ridiculous.
What do you think, Owen?
I am ever disappointed by this place. I'm no evangelist, but the thought in my head right now is about how much they like to talk about hell and how glamorous and how enticing and how noble the pathways to hell often appear. How devils will disguise the worst possible ends in the most glamorous, most gorgeous drapings. And the deeper we go into this place, the more I feel that they've constructed a hospital that if you were to tour someone around its gardens, if you were to look in a brochure or something like that, you would think, oh, this is a place I want to send my ill son. This is a place he will be properly cared for. But, yeah, the further we go, the more pitiful and disgusting it is. I am grossly disappointed and know who I will be praying for when I get back home.
You have listened to an episode of Red Moon Role-Playing, where we play the campaign The Whispers of the Mountains for Call of Cthulhu 7th edition. The Whispers of the Mountains was written by Clara Herbal, who was also our keeper. We were joined by Aaron Hammonds from Queen's Court Games, and our dear friend Matthew Dawkins. The music is from the Cthulhu, Nyarlathotep, Jog Sothoth, Shub Niggurath, and Asathoth compilations by our friends at Cryochamber, and the Paleo Wolf album Genesis. Check them all out at cryochamber.bandcamp.com or their YouTube channel for more music for your gaming table. We would like to give massive thanks to our champions of the Red Moon: Martin Heuschober, Nastasia Raulerson, Simon Cooper, David, Julia, Camilla, Ludwig Manford, Bob Lange, Julián, and Cameron for their generous support. And we would of course also like to thank all of our other patrons. Without your support, the show would not be possible. If you want to support our work, please check us out on Patreon. You can get access to bonus campaigns for Cultivated Lost and Coriolis there, as well as get early and raw access to all of our recordings. You can also hear your name read on the show as a champion of the Red Moon. Most importantly, that support is what keeps the show going, so do check us out there. Thank you again for listening. And remember, that is not dead which can eternal lie, and with strange eons, even death may die.